How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Good to see you after so long.
I know, same here. I know. So
Last time I saw you
let's
was
get started.
15 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Time flies. For
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
So I guess let me start it right away. Folks, welcome to SDL Volume 10. This is the season finale of season 1. Today, my guest is someone that has a 3-decade-long story to tell. I came to know of him in the late 90s as a new generation that would carry on the torch of this culture further than we did. One of my reasons for asking him to be a guest was I recognize his, huh?
No, I was just saying hi to Corey.
Please, Corey. One of my reasons for asking him to be a guest was I recognize his contribution to this culture. I also feel more now than ever, if they have contributed a chapter in this art form, it should be acknowledged. So, gentle ladies and men, please.
Thank you, Mike.
No problem. Before we get started, I want to kind of give folks a taste of who they're about to see if they haven't already done so already. So let me turn this around. If there's anyone who has a question on who I'm interviewing today, I think that video said it all. I personally didn't know you were.
I mean, so I was a commercial dancer, but I was also, underground. It started from the underground, and then commercial is what I later got into. And to make a living, I'm not from New York, right? I moved from Virginia, so I moved there with a purpose. I wanted to be a professional dancer. I mean, I remember one of the videos that really inspired me was uh, Janet Jackson, If. And I was like, I want to do
Mm.
that. I want to be in a video with like Janet. I never got to be with Janet, but like, that was like my thing. I wanted to do that. So yeah, it's like, I never really speak about it, but that's like a lot of my commercial work. And some of the people you might recognize, like Karis One, Faith Evans, there's Saturday
Of
Night
course,
Live
of course.
there. Yeah, but then there was also a mix of some of the Indian artists I worked with, and even like I kind of fell in that Latino look. So I worked with some Latin artists as well. But so a lot of the people from India will definitely be familiar with the artists like Madhuri Dixit and Vidya Balan and stuff. I don't think you know, I don't know. But like some of those artists are pretty big in this area. Yeah.
Mm. Okay, so let's go into the first segment of the interview, which is basically clubbing slash house dance era.
Okay.
But before we get into that, I kind of want to go into your early beginnings. So let's start off with who are you? Where are you from?
Okay. So my name is, everybody knows me as Kundu over here. Mike, you know me as Tony. I've been through many names, but my real name is Proshanjit. My middle name is Guy. I'm half French, and my last name is Kundu. My mom's French,
Okay.
father's Indian. I was born in France. Uh, and then after 6 months after I was born in France, I moved to Canada. Uh, I moved to Canada to be with my father. My mom and dad were still together. Parents got divorced when I was about 4. Moved back to France, and I lived with my mother and grandmother till I was like 5.5. And then a lot of problems family-wise and stuff, so I had to move with my father. My mom wasn't able to take care of me anymore in Canada, and I lived in Canada till I was 10, and then we moved to the U.S. We moved to Virginia. So that's a little bit my earlier years. So I grew up with my dad, single family household. My dad worked a lot, so I like, I wouldn't say I raised myself, but I would come, my dad was never home, so I would come home, throw food in the microwave, eat, go play with my friends. Like I had a lot of free time, and I didn't really have any adult figures in my life to kind of like guide me the right way. Like it's important to have the proper father figure and a mother, So my father was there. He was just too busy working, and coming from India, and even though he lived a bit in Africa, he lived a bit in Europe. Uh, he he left India when he was 20, but he had a very Indian mindset, like work hard and to make something of yourself, especially in a country like the U.S. So like a lot of immigrant parents. So my dad, he worked, so I didn't see him that much, um, and so yeah, and then well, let me jump into like my dancing. So that's kind of like
But
my
wait, wait,
earlier
but
years.
before,
Like,
but
yeah.
well, before you get into that, where in Canada did you go? Did you
So
live? Where in Canada?
I lived in 3 places. The first one was in New Brunswick. It was in a place called Riverview, New Brunswick. I don't know, maybe you've heard of it. Have you? It's kind of like a small place that
I'm
nobody knows
familiar
about.
with I'm familiar with Toronto because I have family there, and of course Montreal.
Montreal, okay. So like New Brunswick, and then we moved to Edmonton, Alberta, and then and after Edmonton, we moved to
Mhm.
Vancouver, Canada. So
Mm.
yeah, so we were out on the West
Okay.
Coast, and my father had family in Virginia. My uncle, his older brother, worked at the World Bank, so he was kind of like the
Mm.
first one from my Indians, from my dad's side, sorry, who kind of like set base in America. And then another brother came who's an engineer, and then my dad being the third one coming through. But we were like on a waiting list in Canada before coming to the US of 7 years.
Mm.
7 years. So
7 years waiting list.
Yeah, that's how it was. Yeah. So
Wow.
that's a long time. Yeah, I know. And then yeah, then we moved. We took my dad took like a little van, a Volkswagen van, and we drove from
Hmm.
Vancouver and we drove all the way through the US to Virginia. We did it in I think 6 days.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 days, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because VA is pretty big. You had to go through DC and then, oh, yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we went from the west coast, so I mean, we went through. I remember like North Dakota. Mount Rushmore is North
Mm.
Dakota. We stopped there. We saw like I don't know, a bunch of places, a lot of camping grounds and stuff. So
And
yeah,
how old were you at the time?
I was 10,
Wow.
10, yeah. We
So you
moved
had that
around. So
vision at a young age.
well, as a young kid, I moved around so much. I moved back with my mom, my dad, my grandmother, my French grandmother, and back with my dad. Then we moved in different parts of the country. So every time I established any type of relationships, like with friends, it was like time to go after a
You had
couple
to
of
go.
years. Yeah. So I feel like my life is today what it is because my foundation was like that. I never had like true foundation, you know, like with
Okay.
family wise and also just living, just my like,
Mm.
constantly moved around, meet people. I never got too attached. Well, I did in the earlier years
Mm.
as a kid, of course, but like as you get older, it's just like, you get kind of
Becomes
like,
routine.
yeah, yeah.
Mm. Okay, so let's go into hip hop in VA 90s. You got your bachelor's degree in fine arts, dance choreography.
Yeah, that was in
What school?
I went to school from 93 to 98, but I started dancing in 1990.
Mm.
So I started hip hop dancing in 1990. I was introduced to it by two friends of mine, Vernon and Brendan. Vernon is
Mm.
supposed to be in the chat. I hope Vernon's watching. He said he's going to watch. So Vernon and Brendan are the ones that put me on to it. So I remember going
Mm.
to Brendan's house one day after school. I had to go pick up some tapes. I had cassette tapes. Brendan had like my Fat Boys tape, Run DMC. So, I went there to pick it up, knocked on the door. Nobody answered the door. Growing up in the suburbs, everybody kind of leaves their door unlocked. Walked in the house, heard some music, and I remember like just going downstairs where they're playing music. And I just from the stairs, I remember just kind of poking in. And I saw them. There he is, Vernon. So I saw them practicing, and they were kind of like making a routine and stuff. And I just kind of like watched for a while. And I don't know if it was Vernon or Brendan, but one of them was like, come learn the routine with us. And I never danced in my life. I was like, I never grew up really with dance or music like in my family. It was everything was it was new, and I remember like in high school people dancing. I remember like people doing the WAP and the fila, but
Mm.
like I never thought of myself as to be able to do any of those things. So
Mm. Mm.
so yeah, so it was from there, and I remember the first step that they showed me was the Running Man. And I remember holding like some pole in the basement. You got these like poles, and I was holding it, like practicing the Running
Mm.
Man. They were both showing
Mm.
me, and then once I got that, I was like, okay, show me the next thing, and they showed me the Roger Rabbit, and there was like a few other steps. There he is, Brendan's there, Brendan. Yeah, and it was there, and I remember being there till like late night. So definitely 3 4 hours I was at Brendan's house, and that's where the spark started. So Vernon and Brendan are the ones who did it for me. I'm here today because of them too. I mean, because of many others, but they're the ones who started it for me. So and
Shout out to
and then
Brendan. Yeah.
yeah, Brendan and Vernon, yeah, and then from there I would whenever I had like after school I would go hang out at Vernon's house. Usually go to Vernon's house, and we hang out. We used to watch music videos, Rap City, UMTV Raps. On the weekends, there was Soul Train, Def Comedy Jam. At the end of Def Comedy Jam, they had that 5 minutes of dance at the end. So yeah, I
Yep.
remember at that time, as you know, like the rappers danced as well. You had people like,
Yes.
uh, Big Daddy Kane, Redhead Kingpin,
Hmm.
um, Father MC, MC Light.
Yep.
Everybody was dancing with the dancers. It's like it's
Yep.
so much has changed since then. So we used to just watch these music videos, and we used to just kind of. It was like YouTube today. It's like that's how we learned, and yeah,
Mm.
that's where it started. And then I think maybe after 6 months or so of dancing, I mean, Vernon might know better. We went to, because I remember Brendan moved to North Carolina, and Vernon, we went to, he got me prepared for my first dance ever at the homecoming dance at my high school. So there was this
Mm.
girl that I liked. So he got me the courage to ask her out. I think her name was Daphne. I don't remember. No, yeah, I forget. So, but like, yeah, it started from there, and I remember we went to the homecoming dance, and there was this like big circle, and people went out dancing, and Vernon danced, and then Vernon got me out there to dance. I don't know if we had like a routine or something. I remember doing something. I think we did like a kid and play, and that move where you grab your foot and jump over the leg. I remember doing something,
Yep.
yeah. And nobody in my high school knew I danced at all because I was like real secretive about it, didn't tell anybody. And so yeah, that was my first dance, homecoming. I think it was like 10th grade or 11th, I don't
Wow.
remember. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
and then from there we started going to like house parties. My confidence built up. I went with Vernon to like some house parties. Then we went to this teenager club called Zach's. It was in where we lived in Springfield, Virginia. And I remember that was the
Mm.
first time I was exposed to other dancers and seeing a lot of the hip hop dancers from different high schools coming there. And I remember watching them, and I was like, okay, these guys are like, they were good. I thought they were really good. And it was there.
You
Those
said
were
that
my like.
the name of the name of the club was called Tracks or Dax.
Okay, so the hip hop club was called Zach's. Yeah, but it
Okay.
was later on where I got introduced. Actually, Vernon told me about a dance style called house dancing. He's like, oh, he showed me some move and he said, this is a house move. And I was like, what is house? So that's the first time I heard about house. And then in high
Mm.
school, there was a friend, Tuan, who was like, had this hookup of going to these like clubs. Like we were underage, we were 17. And he was telling me about
Hmm.
this one club, Tracks, which was in DC. And he's like,
Mm.
where everybody, yes, Zach. Yeah, so tracks, so yeah, so with tracks, Tuan was telling me about this place called Tracks. You got to come onto this club, and he had the hookup because you had to be 18 to go to clubs. So
Mm.
one time I went with Tuan, and we went to this club in DC. It was in Southeast DC, kind of like a shady area, you know, and
Hmm.
it was my first introduction. I remember like, wow, like everybody was so, used to going to that teenager club, but everybody was so much older and I was a small kid. Like even at 17, I looked like I was 15, so I felt like a small kid. But there was no issue with
Mm.
like ID or nothing. Like we got in. I was lucky to get in. And that night like really changed my life. I think that was the night like I really fell in love with this dance. Like I liked hip hop, but I think with house it's just like it hit me in a different way. Um, and the people were from all walks of life. Like everybody came together, like all different ethnic groups. I remember seeing
Mm.
uh, like drag queens. I remember seeing like midgets. I remember seeing like people like who would be maybe ridiculed outside, who were like, you know,
Yep.
um, embraced here. And I was like, wow, this place is like,
Yep.
I
Yep.
never seen anything like this. This was like so new to me. And I fell in love with the music. And I remember, my friend
Mm.
Tuan took me to the circles because he had a couple of friends who were dancers. And we just
Mm.
I just sat there for hours just watching the dancers. I was in awe. I was like, wow, what is this? Like the the footwork, dancers jumping up, running up the wall, flipping, coming down, and the splits coming up, and doing this really smooth footwork that I've never seen before. It's like
Mm.
at that moment I stopped doing hip hop, and I was just like, I want to learn this. How do I learn this? Like, you know. So that's how it
Wow.
started. Tracks was like how Shelter is to New York. It had the same kind of
Okay.
vibe, the same feeling. It was pretty big club as well. And the only thing difference, I think, like it was grungy. Like Shelter had, it was kind of grungy, the one on Hubert Street, right? And we had this
Mm-hmm.
outdoor area at Tracks with the volleyball, and there was like sand and stuff. So there was like kind of an area we can go outside and just chill out and stuff, which Shelter didn't have. And so
Okay.
that was nice. Yeah. So Tracks was the place. Like so many dancers, and the way people danced then was very different than the way people danced in New York when I came to New York. Very different.
Explain.
Way.
Mm.
What, to me, I remember it because the person that introduced me to was actually Cricket before I even moved. I knew Cricket because he was living in Philly, and he was friends with one of my dance partners, CJ. And I don't remember where it was, but maybe it was in Maryland or something. And we had like got, I met Cricket, and we hung out a bit. He was playing some VHS tapes, and he was like, it was like Japanese dancers. So I was watching it.
Hey, Sarah.
Sister Sarah, yes, original Shelter, original promoter right there.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
ma'am.
So yeah, so I remember watching it, but I didn't like it at that time. The way people dance to me, it was very jumpy, and the way people were dancing in DC was really smooth. Like people weren't like jumping so much. It was really their footwork was really like some smooth, kind of like sliding on water kind of thing. It had a different vibe. But again, like I didn't see the right people because the first time I saw it was just like it was a tape in Japan, and it was my first time, and I was like, I wasn't really feeling it. And the next time I was introduced to that style was I moved to New York in 1998.
98.
That's when I moved to New York, and that's
So
when
I kind of want to.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry.
No. Go ahead. Sorry.
I kind of want to go into your beginnings in VA a bit,
Okay.
and your venture into house. The guys who introduced you to house, where did they learn from? Did they used to come to New York? And if they did, where did they go?
Well, okay. So the first time I saw house again was at Tracks. So that was my first exposure. But then it was so I was still in high school, and I was living in Northern Virginia at that time.
Mm.
And then from Northern Virginia, I was getting ready to go to college. And I went to college down in Richmond, Virginia. So it was there where I came across two guys at first, Malik Jones and Carlos Fun. And they were hip hop and house dancers that were also studying modern dance and ballet and stuff. And I remember the first person I met was actually Monte. I know him as Monte. His real name is Malik. He goes by Alpha Mega. I know him as Monte. So I saw Monte some night. It was like a weeknight, college night, and this guy was at some club dancing. And I remember watching this guy dance. I was like, oh, I was like so blown away. I've never seen anybody dance like this in my life. He danced so different than all the guys up in DC danced. And I just like spoke to him and stuff a bit. And he was just like, yeah, come for practice. We have this practice at the basketball, like the gym and stuff like that. So I think the next time I met him was a couple of days later, him and Carlos. And they were just like kind of practicing and stuff, and I was just kind of like watching. I didn't really know much of house already. I just knew I just knew hip hop, so I didn't know how to get
Right.
into house. So
So
it was
where did
it was
they learn to do the house? Did they come to New York or they learned it
no,
that
they
way?
never came to New York.
Oh,
They learned it
interesting.
on their own.
Nice.
But the way they danced, see, Mike, nobody in DC, nobody was doing like
Mm.
moves, loose legs, the shuffle, farmer, shuffle step. Like I never saw any of those moves. I seen it because I took some West African dance in college. So like the farmers, for example, I recognized it.
Right.
I also took class with Chuck Brown. No, sorry, Chuck Davis. Chuck Davis. I don't know if you know Chuck Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like
Yes.
he did like a loose legs kind of movement. So I saw
There
it.
you go.
Yeah. So I know everything's connected to different African dances. Like I see the connection. And Carlos told me the best. He's like everything is connected to. He's the one who's told me take West African dance, and you'll see the. So that's what I did.
Absolutely.
I took like 2 semesters of it, and so I saw the connections. It's just it was done differently in house dancing, you know. Uh,
Good to
so
know.
yeah, yeah. So
I kind of want to go into another video where you kind of went back to VA, um, and you kind of did like a special video. And
oh
I
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
after that, I want you to like explain to me what's going on there.
Okay, okay.
And you're a house dancer. Retired. Retired. Okay, but right now you're out of retirement. Yes, just for my friends. Yes. But we got a few shots of you, like you brought it back though. Yeah, it's in me, but I choose to stay retired now. But you got this for the kids. This for the kids. All the kids. Hey, little kids. Love the kids. Love my Debo and Samara and Faith. Love the kids. And shout out to white people. That's Renee. What's up, baby? How you doing?
I think I know this guy. He looks familiar.
Carlos.
The one dancing now.
Yeah, Carlos. He's,
He's strong.
yeah, this is one take.
Yeah, this guy I've definitely seen before.
Yeah, he lived in New York for some time. He used to have dogs. I used to go to Cafe Con Leche.
Capitan Leche. Yeah, okay. So I definitely know him.
He told me about it. Yeah.
I definitely know him. Nice. Huh. Woo. Oh. Ooh. Nice.
I love it. I love
Nice.
it. I love it. You got the cigar.
Okay,
Yeah.
so real quickly, break down all three of those guys for me.
Okay, so this video, first of all, this video does no justice because at their prime, they were amazing. Carlos,
I can
he's
imagine.
little more heavy set guy now. He, sorry, I'll go with Derek first. So Derek,
Okay.
so first of all, the only person who dances now to this day is Monte. Carlos doesn't really dance. And Derek, he's a family man, and he left dancing a long time ago. So this reunion was nice because we just brought us together. We were supposed to do another one actually this time that I was there. It didn't happen. Monte, Malik, we entered the Juste Debout, so I mean that was like it was nice to dance again together one more time. But again
I
with
saw
the
that.
videos,
Nice.
yeah. So Carlos's style of dancing, he fused a lot of modern dance with capoeira and,
Yep.
and different West African dance forms. He fused that, so that was kind of his way of moving. Derek, his way of dancing was he would like, you know, he would use things in the surroundings and play with that. That would, like if he, for example, I remember one thing he would say like, he would like if he sees a clock or something, he would like pretend he has a watch and he would do movements and imitate things with the clock or something. He was more like a concept kind of dancer in that way. Monte had like you were like he had like amazing footwork and he was also a hip hop dancer like Michael Jackson. Like anything Monte did, he was just nasty at it. Like he was just amazing. To me, he's like the Michael Jordan of dance. You know, to this day, I've never seen anybody dance like him at his prime. So the video you saw, maybe a couple years before that, he almost died he almost got cut in two in a car accident. He was in a coma for a few months and stuff. So he's got like metal whatever things in his body and stuff. So for him, he wasn't even supposed to walk. So for him to just do what he's doing is an amazing thing. Like that's how strong he is. Yeah. But if you saw him in his prime, Mike, he like blew me away. He blew me away.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the way you went back and you gave props or significance to where you came from. Like I admire things like that because it's things like this that tells the story of this art form. And it's just like you said when I asked you, did they ever learn from New York? And you said no, they acquired that basically where they're from. It goes to show you how influential the dance was. It was just throughout the United States, and different states kind of like represented the dance a different way in terms of a different style. So I admire that because it shows the alternative to show the fact that house dance wasn't just going on in New York, even though it probably was born there, but it definitely reached out to different parts of the US, and wherever it hit, it
Yeah, I mean, we had there's like little pockets. Like if you went down to Virginia Beach, there was house dancers there. Richmond, we had dancers there. A lot of dancers up in the DC area. Baltimore had its own house scene. Baltimore house. Then you had Philly. There were dancers everywhere, and everybody, like, I'd never seen anybody dance like New York until I moved to New York. That was the first time I was exposed to New York, that way of dancing. Um, you know, and I remember Monte. Damn, I gotta try to remember. He went to New York to enter some hip hop battle, and he got to the finals, and he lost to a guy. Can't think of his name. Famous hip hop dancer from back then. Like, he stopped dancing a long time ago.
Mm.
Fendi?
Fendi, yeah.
Yeah.
Legend.
Yeah. There was like a big contest, and driving from Richmond to New York was like a 7-hour drive, and he went there specifically for this hip hop battle, and him and Fendi were in the finals. He told me, and he lost to Fendi. But yeah.
Somebody just asked a question, and I kind of want you to take the guess and answer it for them. Elton, he asked,
Elton, yeah. Elton.
Do you see the question? Because I really can't see it clearly.
I see it, yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to read it to you?
Yeah.
Does most of house dance incorporate elements of African dance forms? You want to answer, or me?
You're the guest.
To me, yeah, it does. Yeah, it's simple as that. Like, there's all the connection. Again, these dance forms, house, hip hop, breaking, it comes from the Black American community. So there's the connection, the lineage always goes back to the roots being Africa, So, yeah. How would you answer?
You took those are my words.
Yeah.
Greatly said. I have faith in you. That's why I said you can answer it. Okay, let's go into the first topic of the interview. Your generation was, to me, the first to be the hybrid of a club head and a house dancer. And I say this because I always say there's a difference between a house dancer and a club head. I've said this in other interviews, and I said the difference is, if you've ever learned to dance within a club atmosphere, then you can consider yourself a club head. If you've ever learned to dance in a studio, then you can consider yourself a house dancer. It doesn't mean that if you're a house dancer, you can't become a club head. There's two elements that's important to remember with the club head element, and one is social, and two is music. And once you understand these two elements, you can consider yourself a club head. So for you guys kind of introduced a clean technique flow in your dance. And for us, like, who were like there already, we had like a pure feeling, but we were rigid. We weren't clean. We were very sloppy. But we showed a lot of emotion in the dance that we were doing. We weren't clean, we weren't technical, but you guys were the first to kind of come in, and you had these both aspects in your favor. You had the clubs, but then you also had the studio. And I want to know, like, would you agree with that?
Not fully. Not fully.
Okay.
I started as I feel 100% as a club dancer. I think the only difference,
Okay.
I noticed this with a lot of club dancers, they would only stay in the club. And me, I was always like, and I learned this also from Carlos. He always said, just take classes with everybody, learn from everybody. So he instilled that in my head from my earlier days. Yeah. So I noticed that with a lot of the club heads, especially like coming to New York, because we didn't have dance classes in Virginia. There's no such thing as house dance or hip hop dance class. So I'd already just 8 years doing hip hop, house. I used to break too. I started breaking a few years before I moved to New York too. So I just love dancing. I love different movements. And then also with the formal training I was doing at the university with the ballet and modern and everything like that. So for me, when I came to New York, I always, of course, embraced like the clubs because that's what I always loved. But also, I wanted to learn as much as possible, and that's why you saw me. I would be in different classes. Like, okay, I took classes
Yeah,
with Marjorie. I would learn with Brian. I learned.
yeah, that's what I mean.
I came a couple times to your class because I wanted to make sure
Yeah,
that it took everybody's class at least once. That's what I told
yeah,
myself because I just want to get like just not necessarily like learning a new move, but just learning how that person teaches. And and I took and I can say in my journey to dance to this day, taking different things from different people because I learned different things from different people. Like there was one thing that you showed me, and I remember like you did the farmers, but you kind of like swayed it. I don't know if you remember, but you showed me that, and when I do it, I think of you. Or this person showed me this move, like the first person to show me loose legs was Shido, Lenny, and Fernando. Those three guys. So
Jersey crew. Yeah, Jersey
the
crew.
Jersey crew, yeah. So I think of them when I do it, you know. But obviously, over time, we created our way on our body, and things changed, and we have our own techniques and stuff like that. But that was important for me because I wanted. It was almost like a souvenir because I'm like I remember that person when I did that move, you know. So
Yeah,
again, going to your question, I feel 100% club head, but I wouldn't say I'm a house dancer. I'm just a dancer because I love going. I also enjoy going to the hip hop clubs. I also do enjoyed going to the reggae clubs. I enjoyed breaking. I enjoyed popping, locking, whatever music made me feel. I didn't want to just be confined to just house. But I love house. Like I got house music playing all the time. It's like I don't know if you can hear it. It's in the background. Like from morning to night, I'm playing house music. Like I like R&B. I like neo soul. I like pop, but I won't listen to it from the moment I wake up in the morning to before going to bed. I don't have it playing all the time. And it's just something about house dancing, the flow, the smoothness is something that is drawn to me. Now, talking about like you were saying, like the being clean and stuff. Um, I don't know if talking about other dancers or me specifically, but I've always been told I'm a very clean dancer. So
very.
I think that's just how I am naturally. I don't know. Like I'm very like every time I'll do the move, I'll do it exactly the same time, the same way every single time. So people say, "Oh, you're very clean. You're very light on your feet." So I think it's just some maybe a quality I naturally got.
Yeah, but my explanation about the club head and the house dancer was exactly what you just said. You proved my point
Okay.
exactly. I didn't mean to typecast you to say that, you're just a
No, no,
house
no. It's
dancer.
okay.
I meant
Yeah.
in terms of you coming to New York, because of course you started it before that. But I was talking from the New York perspective. Once you arrived in New York,
Yeah.
you kind of ushered in a generation that had this type of mindset where we didn't have it. It's
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
you said, we just went to the clubs. For us, dancing was the afterthought. We didn't really, it was a part of the makeup. We didn't even call ourselves dancers. We just said, yeah, we going out type of thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
where you guys kind of formalized the structure a little bit in your approach. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think also
Um,
you're from New York. Like you like dancing was something you did passionately, but you had I believe you had
was the
another job.
afterthought.
You had another
Yep,
job, right? Yeah. So and
yep.
for me, and like teaching was something you would do on the side because you enjoyed it, but your
Leisure. Yeah.
your break came from the job that you had. So for me, it's like if I'm going to do this, I'm going all out, and I had to learn to be able to pick up choreography. I had to learn to be able to do different forms. So even just I wouldn't do like the house hip hop class. I would even like any of the I became friends with a lot of choreographers. They say invite me to class. Jermaine Brown and say come to my class.
Mm-hmm.
And
Jermaine.
yeah, I was supposed to actually we were supposed to do an online class today, but you know working with these different people allowed me to be like a chameleon, being able to adapt to anything that's thrown at me.
Yeah,
That was important
yeah.
because that was my life. I had to
That
make my living that way, right? So So
Yeah, that was because for me, when you said teaching, like for me, for the people that don't know me, I give myself the timestamp and I say I started in late 92. Of course, I was dancing before that. But when I give the timestamp of late 92, because that's when I recognized this music that was coming from the clubs, and the dance form that it was being done to was later known as house. But before that, there was no name for it. We were just club heads.
yeah,
So I want to ask you, when you came to New York, you said 98. Now 98
I moved
was,
to
a lot was
yeah, I
going
moved to New
on.
York '98. Yeah.
What were some of the clubs you went to? Where, and some of the studios that you went to? And who did you take classes from?
So '98, I moved to New York. The first club I went to was Shelter, and then there was also Body and Soul, Hubert Street.
Yep.
Um, those were like that was like the main house place I went to. I mean, later on, Brian had his thing, house dance conference.
House
I think
Dance
that was
Conference. Yep.
2 years later or something. But I was going to like a mix of places. I was going to little holes in the wall kind of places. Like I
Mm-hmm.
remember Sapphire Lounge.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? Sin Sin
Yeah,
came
I
a bit
interviewed
later.
E-Man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Sin Sin came a bit later. I think that was like Brian Cox and Ego's party.
Yeah, that came
Um,
much later. Simpson came
yeah,
like
that
in
came much later. That came,
2004 or 5. Yeah, much later.
yeah, that came, yeah, because I was there for a while and then I left. But I was also going to like hip hop places too. Can't remember some of the, like, trying to think. Sarah probably know.
She
Um,
said Legend. Legend. Yeah, it's Legend.
I don't remember Legend,
Club
but I
Legend.
remember like it's not coming to me. A lot of the places, and they were like some of the commercial places like Carbon, Exit, uh, the
Uh-huh.
the Limelight, like some of those like really commercial could be kind of like corny, but once in a while they had some good stuff. And
Mm.
Spa, remember Spa? Did you know Spa?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
we used to go there quite a bit. Me, Yaya, Mazi, um, a bunch of us. Remedy, maybe you knew Remedy and Keith.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of like going everywhere, and I was dancing. Tunnel, I never went to Tunnel, but yeah, I was going everywhere. I was dancing like I remember one time I danced for 2 weeks straight. I went to clubs 2 weeks straight. It's the most I ever went like consecutively, like back to back, you know. So
Uh,
the
uh,
weekends were like Shelter, but like during the weekday I was like finding these other places, and a lot of them I forgot the names and stuff, but I was just going out as much as I could. So I was juggling going
yeah.
out, teaching classes, rehearsals, going to auditions, juggling everything together. Yeah.
Yeah. Vinyl used to have a 24-hour party.
I vaguely remember. I probably didn't go, and I remember a few times I would leave like 3, 4 in the morning, and I remember crossing paths with you on the street. I don't know if you remember, like once or twice. It was like 4 in the
Mm-hmm.
morning, and you were going to the club, and I was like leaving. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Um,
was like,
let's go
I
into,
usually, yeah.
huh?
No, I usually never stayed out like till like sunrise. Like
Yeah, I
I
did a
would
couple of
try to.
times.
There's a few times I did, but I was trying to get home before sunrise because I just kind of felt guilty. I would sleep like the whole day. I was like, you know, yeah. Latin quarters was I didn't
Actually,
experience Latin quarters.
Land Quarter, I don't know Land Quarters. I heard about it. A lot of my boys used to go. Like when my Brooklyn boys used to go, and a lot of
Yeah,
horror
Latin
stories, but
quarters.
I never touched that club.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the studios. Where are some of the
Oh yeah.
studios that you went to when you came to New York, and whose classes did you take?
Okay, so first studio I went to, there was a practice, and it was I remember Lenny, Shido, and Fernando, and they had invited me to the shelter, not the shelter, sorry, Hazel's. They said there's like an open practice
Sir.
or something. Yeah, there's open practice, and I started going to Faisal's to the open practice. And it was there where the first one of the
Hmm.
first people I met was Sekou. So I met him. I remember he was like one of the first. I think he's in Dance Fusion too, right?
Yeah, he's one of the
Yeah,
original members. Yeah.
original members. Yeah, so he was like one of the first people I met. And then I just started meeting other people. I remember meeting Specs. Um, Brian was there, and I think a lot of people got to like know of me, like, oh, this new dancer from Virginia and stuff. So people started asking. I remember they were telling me about their dance classes, and one of the first people's classes I
Mm,
went to was Brian Green. And I went to
that's
his
right.
house. I went to his house class at Faisal's, and then like anybody who was teaching, like I was like, okay, let me try this class, So I tried.
Mm,
Uh, I went. I think I went to uh, Shannon's class once. I went to Marjorie's class many times. I think I took Ijo's class like once or twice. So, I was just like, just dabbling around, and everybody was teaching at the Faisal studio, and it was like pretty well priced. I think it was like $10 for a class or something, like hour and a half, 2 hour classes.
Faisal's was basically the home that one of the first studios to open its doors to the
Yeah,
art form of house and hip hop.
house and
Um,
hip.
and also got to give props to Perry Dance because Igal, he opened up his doors to the b-boy world. Um, the early rehearsals of Jamming on the Groove was done at
Yeah,
Perry Dance, but
yeah,
Faisal's was a flamenco studio, and it was one of the first places to open up its doors to us because at that time, a lot of studios like Broadway dance centers and steps and things like this, they basically used to look at house and hip hop as a joke. They didn't take it
yeah,
seriously.
yeah,
And Faisal's was one of the first places to say, yeah, you guys can be here. And it was like you said, it was well priced. So
yeah, yeah.
much love to Faisal's. Yeah,
Yeah, I remember
forever.
the practice was like
Yeah,
$3 or something,
yeah,
right? Or something
yeah,
like that, like 2, 3 bucks. Yeah, yeah. It,
yeah,
it was cool. I like that spot. I mean, that was there a couple of years before it closed down. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, so Facebook,
I'm I'm trying to remember, when did we meet exactly?
I was actually thinking about that today, and I was thinking like I don't remember. Maybe like we saw each other at the shelter or something. I don't know, or at Faisal's. It had to be either or.
Yeah, it has to be either a club or at a studio because at around that time I was introduced to the studio. I knew what it was. Before then, I had no clue what a studio was. But around that time, 98, 97, I was kind of familiar with what a studio was. So it's either at a club or a studio.
Corey said he
Um,
introduced us.
Probably,
Maybe.
yeah. See, you gotta remind me, because yeah, Corey, he's a definite hub in terms of introducing people.
Okay.
He introduced me to the whole San Francisco True Move crew,
Okay.
Jeff and Eddie, rest in peace. But I'm trying to, yeah, that. All right, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
New York at that
I don't
time
I
was
don't
a.
I don't remember. I don't remember the exact time. But I remember I would always see
Hmm.
you. Oh damn. Hold on a second.
He said at
Monte.
Shelter.
It was a shelter. Maybe like Corey introduced me to a lot of people. Everybody. I'm just sending Monte the link
Hmm.
there. Uh, like everybody was pretty cool with me. Like everybody embraced me. It's funny because before I moved to New York, I remember that summer I drove from Richmond up to New York, and I drove
Hmm.
with a friend of mine. It was my first time in shelter. I hadn't moved there yet, but it was my taste
Mm,
of the New York club scene. So I wanted to check it out, and
mm,
I used to like I would mix like my house style with and I would also break. I was breaking and housing at the same time. I didn't do hip hop anymore, but I was doing a lot of both. And I remember in the
Mm.
circle, a few cats were like at me, and it was some of the Step Fiend guys. I remember who it was
Step
too. It was
Fiends.
yeah, Wild Child was one.
Oh yeah.
Terry, and Little Dave.
Yep.
And I remember they
That's the
were at me.
crew.
Yeah, they were at me real hard. And remember like we went like a few rounds and stuff. And then I remember in the bathroom, people go in the bathroom to get some water, get the little plastic cup and get some water, And I
Right.
remember
Right.
Lenny and little Dave were in there, and they're like, "Yo, where you from? Like, we've never seen you before, and they were digging like the way I dance is different. I guess they
Mm.
didn't see many people who were doing like house and breaking and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, I just told me up and stuff. That's it. It was just I came for that
Nice.
night. Then I drove all the way back to Richmond. It was like 7-8 hour drive. After a long night at the club.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah, that was
Yeah. Like back then, the clubs were very around that time, especially if you were from out of town. Prepare to have a long night because the the younger lions, the younger cubs of the scene, which was basically us, or at that
yeah,
98, there was another generation coming in. They were in the mood to just eat.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and if you stood your ground, they gave you props and they welcomed you in. It wasn't anything long lasting. Like there was no animosity. It was just about the get down. Just get down, dance, and you
mm,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are you in touch with any of the Jersey guys?
Um, I speak with Sibo from time to time.
Okay.
But that's about it. Cito, I saw him the last time I was in New York. But everyone else, no, like I fell out of touch. Like Lenny, I mean, I'm pretty sure they're on internet. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can find them on Facebook, but I haven't seen them in years. Like I probably haven't seen them longer than I haven't seen you. It's been years.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been years.
And
Yeah,
I
but those
also
were
want to add
definitely
this
good
one
times.
thing. Sister
Hmm.
Sarah, I mean, she was always introducing me to a lot of the new parties. And the password, I remember,
She's a beautiful person.
she's a wonderful
Beautiful person.
person. Wonderful person, yeah.
Yes.
Um, and I remember the password was always Tony Montana. She said, "Tell him Tony Montana at the door, and you got it. You're free." And she would hook me up like with
Yeah.
all Louis Vegas parties and everything, everybody's parties. She was like, Candy. What was that? Candy Store, the radio station.
Candice, yeah, oh my God, he's gonna kill me. Little Ray.
Jelly Bean. I forgot. Yeah,
But if you're talking about the candy store, you're talking about Little Ray. You're talking about Ray.
yeah.
Yeah, but definitely Sarah, props to
Stone
Sarah.
Ray. It was Stone.
Beautiful
Yeah, it was
soul,
Stone Ray.
definitely.
Stone Ray. Yeah.
Stone Ray,
It's
yeah.
coming back to me
Stone Ray,
slowly,
my
but
little brother.
yeah, Stone Ray. I remember because she was work. Yeah, she was
Yeah,
always got to hook up with the guest list, and she was working at the candy store.
yep. Out of NYU. They had a radio station out of
Yeah,
NYU.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. It's beautiful that you're telling stories like this because this is an era in the art form of this dance that a lot of people don't really talk about. Um, and I think it's this particular era, mid to late 90s, was crucial for the dance scene because it basically it created the process of what came after, and it was a very important time in history for the dance, and it was a time where if you weren't there, you had no idea of how it was. So it feels good for me to talk to people like you because you were there for the late 90s and I would say mid too because there wasn't too much that changed, but you were there for that crucial time in the dance where the house music genre was through the roof in terms of chart topping. Clubs were popping up everywhere. And for those 2, 3 years, it was a hub of a lot of dancers that used to travel, not particularly worldwide, but statewide, because during the 2000s is where the internet hit. And it was after the internet boom is where we had, you know, a lot of Europeans and a lot of Asians coming in. But even before then, a lot of Asians were coming in regardless, particularly from Japan and France. I got to give them props. But within that time frame that we're talking about, a lot of people don't know what happened, and the only people that knew about it were the ones that were there. And I could say you were there, C Boogie was there, Sarah was there. So many different people that, just like we're talking now, that they can just chime in and say, yeah, this club was on, that club was on, we went here, we went there. So, you know, math is proof and proof is math. So I appreciate this segment, because a lot of people need to understand this era of the dance, because it's very crucial, very crucial.
And, you know, again, before, you know, just adding this to it, before moving to New York,
sure,
when I was going to college in Virginia, it was a big thing. Like, we would go to other states to see other dancers, you know, to like drive up to like wherever. If we went to Philly, Paul Stations in Philly or Baltimore, or, you know, down south, down in North Carolina, there were some clubs that we went to. So that was a big thing, you know, to go to other places and see the new dancers and how they dance. And it wasn't about like battling and showing like I'm better than you, but just like just get down and just, it was nice. And
it was the energy.
Exactly. It was the energy. And the more like south you went, people danced very different than, say, example, like New York. And, you know, I mean, the way people were dancing down in Raleigh, North Carolina, I forgot the name of the club. The way they house was very different than up in New York City or DC.
Yep. And of course, before we leave this segment, I got to give shouts out to places like Connecticut, Boston, DC, definitely VA. Wow, where else am I forgetting? Denver.
Maryland.
Wow.
You said
Maryland.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, they're next door.
And I don't know if you've experienced it. I mean, I never got to experience club culture in Chicago. I went to like one house party. I didn't see any dancers, but I mean, there's so much happening in like that part of the country.
At that time, I never went. I never went, but they definitely contributed to it, because I met dancers from there. I mean, much later with when you come to the Chicago footwork, but even before in that 90s era, I would meet some dancers from Chicago, you know, from Detroit. So a lot of places were coming into New York at that time, especially. Before you got there, there was a club called Sound Factory Bar. I don't think you ever got to go there.
I heard about it from Carlos.
Yeah. You know, before that, the bar, somebody mentioned Afterlife. My first club, House of Nation. So this time stamp, if anyone is interested in this art form, I implore you to investigate this time frame, particular. Of course, the early 90s, yes. Late 80s, yes, important. But the time we're talking about is where we kind of revitalized the dance scene. And when you guys came in, just like I said earlier, with the hybrid of your technique, bringing that into the club, you kind of gave it a modern voice, you know? And this was the first time after you guys were the last to kind of experience the club scene in a way.
I feel so.
A few got to experience the House Dance Conference, of course. To me, that's the last great era of the clubs. But you guys were the last to really experience the club element before it completely crossed over to the studio.
Yeah, I feel so.
Definitely.
I feel so.
All right, so this has been a great segment one. We're gonna log back off and go into segment two. which is basically the post 9/11 era. So we're gonna log off and log right back on.
Okay. Oh, this has only like a 1 hour thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Makes sense, makes sense. Okay, cool. I gotta do this thing
Cool.
again. Okay,
So we're gonna log off and I'm gonna log right back on.
okay, okay.